This video is brought to you by SoccerPro.com. Be sure to visit SoccerPro.com for all the latest soccer gear at everyday low prices with no membership fees. Don't forget to use coupon code SR4U at checkout for $10 off a $75 purchase, plus free shipping within the US. Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you an unboxing plus on-feet video of the Nike GS Concept 2 with GS standing for Green Speed. As you guys can see, it comes in this unfinished brown cardboard box with the Nike swoosh on the top in green and Nike Better World on the back in green. As you guys can see on the label, it reads Nike GS Concept 2, size 9 US, colorway is white, black, white, and the official retail on this guy is $250 US. So get these shoes out of the box here, and for those of you that are familiar with the original release of the Nike GS, you'll know that this is a retail price that's $50 cheaper than that original one, which is somewhat unusual. You generally don't tend to see shoes getting cheaper over time, especially something that's in this high demand. But the reason why it came in at a cheaper price is because this one is much less limited than the original release of the Green Speed. For those of you that aren't familiar with the original Green Speed, basically it was limited to only 2,012 pairs worldwide. I'll leave some annotations on screen if you do want to check that out. Basically each pair was numbered on both the heel right about here as well as on the box. So there's only 2,012 pairs produced for the entire world, and when it was first unveiled and first released, I don't think people realized how limited they actually were. And they pretty much sold out in the first couple of hours, so people that really wanted to get the Green Speeds weren't able to get a pair. It's not something that Nike is going to restock in or re-put out, but they have re-released it here in the Nike GS2. Just realize that it's not nearly as limited as the first release. If I had to guess how many they produced, because they didn't really release any numbers, judging by how many different retailers got them this time around and how much stock each of them had, I would probably guess that they produced about 10 to 12,000 pairs globally, which is still very, very limited, just not even close to as limited as the original release. So if you did want a pair, I definitely recommend picking them up right away if you haven't pre-ordered them already. Some people are already getting them, I believe. All the stores are getting them in stock, if not already, in the next couple of days. So if you didn't order your pair, there definitely are still some available. I'll actually leave some buy it now links down below in the description to whatever retailers still have them in stock. So if you want a pair, order them right away because they're not going to last very long. As far as the other limited kind of quantities of the shoe, basically it was only produced in 4 different sizes, 8, 9, 10, and 11 US. So if you needed a half size or anything like that, you couldn't actually get it in the Nike Green Speed, either this model or the last model. So keep that in mind if you are interested in purchasing a pair. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it as far as talking about the release of this particular shoe, and we'll get into the technical specifications next. The first thing that I want to talk about as far as the Nike GS2 are the differences between the GS2 and the original GS. There's 2 major differences, one being the colorway and graphics on the shoe, and the second being the actual inclusion of all conditions control on the upper, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But as far as the graphics and colorway is concerned, as opposed to having the Volt forefoot vamp area on the shoe, you have an all white forefoot area, unlike the original GS. That's not really what anybody's complaining about. You can notice that additional graphics on the shoe include the ACC logo with Nike Safari print going through the ACC in white and black, the all conditions control badging on the heel area, and then on the instep of the shoe there is a very large, very Vapor 8-esque Nike swoosh on there, whereas the original GS basically only had the small Nike swoosh right about here on the instep, and the entire outside of the shoe was left completely bare, which people really like that minimalistic styling here. And a lot of people, at least what I've heard, are complaining about this very large ACC with the Safari print on the outside, saying that it's distracting, it doesn't need to be there. But personally, I think obviously Nike was trying to showcase ACC was featured on the shoe. It's something that they've really been going crazy with as far as marketing, and people have gotten very, very excited over ACC technology, and for good reason. It actually does work, and it's a very good technology in my opinion. But to put this ACC on the side of the shoe, it's not something that I'm really too against. I actually really like the Safari print from Nike, and I think that the shoe might have been a little bit boring if they didn't include it on the upper. Let me know what you guys think, if you like the ACC logo, if you don't. I know everybody's kind of has mixed opinions, but I'm personally a big fan of the look of this shoe, especially with the white and black colorway. Very simple, but you still have the little flash with the safari print and the ACC logo on the outside. Obviously, the next change is ACC itself, all conditions control featured on the upper. It's something that Nike has been implementing on all 4 of their lines of shoes. As of recently, I believe they did that about a month or 2 ago, and they've included it this time on the GS2. Basically, if you're not familiar with what exactly all conditions control is, ACC is a process that Nike permeates into the upper while actually constructing the material itself. In this case, it's going to be on a Kangalite upper, which is what you're going to see here in the vamp area of the shoe. And pretty much what it does is it allows for a little bit better friction on the ball when playing in wet conditions. In a normal shoe, you're going to notice that water pretty much sticks to the outside of the shoe, and it makes for a kind of a slick surface, whereas ACC, whatever it does and however it does it, basically doesn't allow the water to sit on that outside layer of the shoe, so you get a little bit better friction on the ball when playing in wet conditions. So the idea is to have just as good of a touch in the wet as you would in the dry. And honestly, is it exactly that? Not really. You can definitely still tell that you're playing in the wet, but it definitely does add a little bit of extra friction on the ball, which is always appreciated and something that I would rather have on my shoe as opposed to not have. So that's pretty much it as far as the major changes are concerned, and we'll move on to some of the technical specifications as far as the materials and the process of actually manufacturing this actual shoe. As far as the upper is concerned on the Nike GS2, it's made up of 2 primary materials. The first material, being this black quarter section, is made out of recycled polyester, whereas this front section in white, or the forefoot vamp area, is made out of Nike's Kangalite synthetic. Kangalite, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. It's a material that's used across 3 out of 4 lines on Nike's top-end current models, which would be the Legend, the Laser, as well as the Maestri. And it's a very, very good synthetic. It's a synthetic that's made to mimic the feel of kangaroo leather, but on this particular version it appears to be fairly thin, but it still remains nice and soft. So very curious to see how it's going to feel when playing in them. Also keep in mind this one does feature ACC permeated to the upper, so it is going to offer a little bit better friction on the ball when playing in wet conditions. The reason why Kangalite was chosen as one of the upper materials on the shoe is that because Nike claims it produces 35% less emissions during the manufacturing process than any other synthetic currently out there on the market. So that's why Kangalite was chosen. As far as some of the details in the Kangalite you see here, you can see that the tongue is actually split from Kangalite, then it turns into this recycled polyester material, which is actually really, really cool. If you look on this side, you can see this stitched in area where the Kangalite actually meets the woven polyester, and they kind of sewed it together and then covered that kind of fused area with this heat pressed rubberized material. It's very, very unique, and if you've never seen the shoe in person or want to get a better idea as to how the shoe actually does look in person, go ahead and click the link in the description to the review page on my website. You'll be able to see some high quality pictures there. But basically this rubber area makes up the lateral support of the quarter of the shoe, which is going to allow the shoe to feel very, very light, but still have some good support and stability to the shoe, which is part of the reason why I'm very, very curious to give this shoe a try. This quarter area on the shoe, like I said, is made out of a recycled polyester material, where 95% of that polyester is derived from recycled plastic water bottles. So very, very cool, and a similar technology we saw from some of the jerseys that Nike has producing for this year's club teams, as well as the teams in the Euro that they had. So a very cool technology, and it's kind of interesting to think that this shoe was once a plastic water bottle. So they basically made this woven material. It's very, very strong. It doesn't feel flimsy. It doesn't have any stretch to it, but it's nice and thin. So it should offer a very close touch on the ball. And it's also nice and flexible as well, so it doesn't have too much stiffness to it. So we'll see how that does actually perform when you're making touches on the ball. And as far as where the ACC on the shoe is, I'm not sure if they can put ACC on the woven polyester. We'll have to wait and find out. I'm not sure. I have to use these shoes to really, because you can have a small sense of the ACC. It just has a little bit of a slightly sticky feel to it, especially from when they're brand new. So I don't really know if the ACC is on the polyester section as well as the Kangalite, or just on the Kangalite of the shoe. So again, we'll get to that when I do get testing these, and that's pretty much it as far as the upper is concerned, and we'll move on to the sole plate and stud pattern on this shoe. Alright, as far as the sole plate and stud pattern is concerned on the Nike GS2, it's made out of 2 different components. The first component being the traction plate spine, which is this white section you see going through the middle, and that's basically there to provide the stiffness and responsiveness to the shoe. That's really where all the rigidity in the sole plate is. And then the second part would be this black part where you have all the studs there, and that is called the plate base. And that's basically what's just going to hold the studs and keep the shoe nice and light. This is going to be the most flexible section of the sole plate. You can actually see it cuts out here. So if you've ever seen the deconstruction of the shoe, this plate spine only goes pretty much right about here where my fingers are. It's kind of in somewhat of a diamond shape, or crystal shape if you will, and basically the plate base goes over top in the areas that it needs to be, just for the studs to have somewhere to be supported. Basically, the plate spine going through the middle is made out of two different materials. The first material being 50% Eco TPU, which is actually 15% lighter than standard TPU. It's basically a recycled plastic material. And the other 50% of this spine is made out of Pebax Renew, which is derived from 97% castor beans. Castor beans, like, it's just like it sounds. It's a naturally grown bean, or a vegetable if you will, although I don't think you can actually eat castor beans. It's very cool that they were able to take a naturally growing plant and turn it into a very high quality, very responsive Pebax plastic. Very, very unique. As far as the plate base and the studs are concerned, they are made out of Eco TPU, which, like I said, is 15% lighter than your standard TPU plastic, and very unique as well. You're also going to notice that the heel counter on here is made out of Eco TPU as well. So all the plastics are fully recycled. Very, very cool. As far as the stud pattern itself is concerned, it is a variation on the Nike Mercurial Vapor 8 stud pattern, where you have your 4 studs in the forefoot area and your 2 in the back, but there are some extra studs and some extra twists to the stud pattern that should make it feel a little bit different. Again, I've not worn this shoe yet, so I'm very curious to see how it's actually going to perform. It follows some of the same technologies that we saw released on the Nike CTR 360 Maestri 3, where you have the bladed studs on the outside of the shoe and then the rounded off studs on the instep. The reason why there's rounded off studs here, as you guys can see, they're kind of like a half moon shape, is because when a stud is round, especially in the push-off point on this shoe, it releases a little bit quicker from the ground. So because you have these hard edges on the inside, you're going to have plenty of grip when pushing off, but because it's rounder on the outside edge, you're going to release from the ground a little bit quicker in hopes of having that little bit quicker response time. Obviously, they're all angled very similarly to the Nike Mercurial Vapor 8. Like I said, that's kind of what it is most reminiscent of, but the studs themselves are a little bit different in terms of shape and seem to be about the same length as well. You do have the one support stud in the middle of the forefoot as well. The 2 heel studs in the back is something we've seen a lot of, and it's very, very stiff. It doesn't feel like it's going to break. It actually feels a lot stiffer than even the Nike Mercurial Vapor 8. So very curious to see how responsive it's going to feel. And then the one thing that I really love that they did on this shoe, on both the Nike GS's, is this extra braking stud they have in the back. And like I said, it's exactly like it sounds. It's a braking stud. When you're trying to stop, obviously you want as many studs kind of facing this way as possible to really stop you from moving forward. We do all these technological advancements to increase acceleration, but sometimes stopping is just as important as starting. So I really like that they included this brake stud on there. It's a very small element, but something that I think is a really good idea, and something I think Nike should include on all of their shoes. I like these really little innovations. That's pretty much it as far as the sole plate and stud pattern is concerned. And the next thing we'll talk about is some of the extra elements on here that you may not know about. Alright, next I wanted to talk about some of the cool features on the Nike GS that don't really get highlighted all that often. The very first thing I want to talk about is the insole itself. During the manufacturing process, there are no chemical agents added to this insole, making it very, very environmentally friendly. And what's unique and what they did to shave a little bit of weight is that there's no actual top liner on this insole at all. It's pretty much one single piece of foam with a little bit of texturing on the top, which is actually how they pressed it. The insole itself is somewhat thick and has some really good density and responsiveness to it, but is just super, super light. I'm going to throw it on the scale a little bit later in the video so you can see how light it actually is, but it honestly doesn't weigh nothing, but it doesn't feel like pretty much like a nothing insole, if you want to call it that. It's going to actually provide some good cushioning, so very excited to try this out in the new Nike GS. The second thing I want to talk about is the actual liner in the heel. Kind of opened one up here so you can see it. And in the heel, there's like this dimpled kind of foam-like material. The last time we saw it was in the Nike Mercurial Vapor 4, where it had those little pods on either side of the ankle, or even the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3 that had the little foam in the back heel area, just like this one did. And basically that foam area, it did cause a little bit of blistering, I remember. I actually owned a pair of both of those shoes, and it did cause some blistering, but once you broke it in and it softened up a little bit, it really did provide some good lockdown in the ankle area. So curious to see if that's the exact same material and how it's actually going to perform in terms of comfort as well as heel lockdown. You're going to notice on the inside of the shoe, you can see all of these kind of like suede-like material lining going on the inside of the shoe, and that's basically there again for support reasons. You're going to find a very similar thing on the Nike Mercurial Vapor 8, and that's there just to provide that lateral support and lateral stiffness to the outsides of the shoe that would otherwise just be supported by basically polyester material. Very, very cool. You can actually see how the shoe is sewn on the inside if the lighting is good enough. Very cool how they did this. The last thing I want to talk about is the actual toe board itself on the inside. See that like white and brownish section? You're going to notice that the toe board looks a little bit more grainy, a little bit, I don't want to say less quality than your average toe board, but the reason why this is something that I'm mentioning is because it's actually produced in a closed loop production, which means that there's basically a ball of this stuff. It's in a kind of like a soft mushy ball, picture that, and they press it into this shape, and then all the excess material gets put back into the production process, so there's no excess material wasted, which again plays into the the idea of being as green as possible in the manufacturing process of the shoe. That's pretty much it as far as the small features I wanted to talk about, and we'll do a little weigh-in now so you guys can see how light these shoes actually are. Alright, given that this is a performance product from Nike, they wanted to make it as lightweight as possible, which is probably why it is basically modeled off of the Nike Mercurial series. So given that the listed weight on here is 5.6 ounces, the lightest shoe that Nike has ever produced, we'll put it on the scale so we can weigh it in real time. Keep in mind this pair is a brand new pair, never worn, never even tried on yet, and a size 9 US, so I'll throw that on the scale so you can see what it weighs. And it weighs in at 6.2 ounces, so slightly above the listed weight, but because this is a size 9 and not an 8, it's very likely that they weighed in and put the listed weight at 5.6 ounces because that's probably what the size 8 version probably weighs. Obviously, the bigger the size, the more the shoe weighs, so that's probably where the variation is there. Nonetheless, this is a very, very lightweight shoe, and couple ounces is not going to weigh you down. Like I was talking about earlier, the insole is incredibly lightweight in this shoe while still maintaining some good thickness and some good cushioning to it. So I'll throw that on the scale so you guys can see how much it actually does weigh. And it weighs in at an amazing 0.25 ounces. That is incredibly light, lighter than any insole out in the market by a long shot. And just for comparison's sake, a lot of what people consider to be a lightweight insole is this perforated one from the Adidas Adizero. This is a brand new one. So I'll throw that on the scale so you can see what that weighs. Everybody thought that was light. That weighs in at 0.4 ounces. So it's almost double the weight of this Nike insole, which is incredible, and considering that this is basically twice as thick and twice as cushioned as this Adidas insole, this is a really amazing material and something that I hope they include on a lot of their other shoes apart from just the Nike GS. But that's pretty much it as far as the weigh-in, and I'll let you know what they look like on feet next. Alright, this is what the GS2 looks like on feet, and honestly they fit really well. Very reminiscent of the Nike Mercurial Vapor, maybe with a slightly larger toe box, but I would say they're cut through the midfoot a little bit narrower, as you guys can see. Like I've said before, I don't really have a wide foot at all. I would say I have about an average width foot, and there's really not a lot of extra room as far as width is concerned on this particular shoe. They also feel really stiff through the midfoot from brand new. This is the first time I'm actually putting them on. You're going to see that there's a little bit of kind of rippling in the upper as far as the Kangolite portion of the shoe is concerned, and that's to be expected with the thinness of the Kangolite. The reason why you don't see that with any of the other Kangolite releases from Nike is just because they're not that thin. There's no real natural padding here, and the overall touch on the ball you're going to get is going to be similar to Tasian synthetic as opposed to Kangolite. They fit really good though. They feel fairly comfortable, honestly. They're really stiff, especially in the heel area as well. That like perforated foam material that they put in the heel, you can tell is really stiff from right out of the box. So curious to see if this is going to have any, if I'm going to have any issues with blistering or anything like that. And definitely very excited to give these a try. As far as sizing is concerned, they seem to fit true to size as well. I'm wearing my normal size 9 US in this particular shoe. Obviously half sizes are not available, but as far as the fit and the length, it's pretty much perfect in the size 9. So they definitely do fit true to size. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it as far as the on-feet portion is concerned, and I'll leave you to my final thoughts. Alright guys, well that's pretty much it for my unboxing plus on-feet video of the Nike GS2. I'll be working on the full review for this guy over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned to my website soccerreviewsforyou.com for that full review. It'll give you all the details as to how the shoe feels and performs. But in the meantime, if you want to go ahead and check out that review page, there will be a link in the description where you'll find some buy it now links for this shoe as long as they are available, as well as some high quality pictures to give you a better idea as to how the shoe actually does look in person. Other than that guys, if you could leave a like on this video, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you do have any questions or comments on this particular shoe, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any questions not related to the video, feel free to leave a comment on my Facebook page. There'll be a link in the description of that as well. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe if you want to see daily videos on all of the latest soccer gear. Other than that guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching.